Here we go.
Good afternoon again, Ms. Maya. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Very good. Before we get started with anything, there is a client consent form, because one thing that I think a lot of people get confused about is, well, do I have to do this? No, you don't. Okay, and because of the consent form, we go over this, and you have to agree to it. If you don't, I can't do it. It's just like going to a doctor, you know. Yes, if you're sick, you want to go to the doctor, but if you're not comfortable with that doctor, you don't have to go to that doctor. You can find somebody else. Same thing with a counselor, you know, a therapist or whatever you want to call them. So this is the client consent form, and it says counseling is a confidential process designed to help you address your concerns, come to a greater understanding of yourself, and learn effective personal and interpersonal coping strategies. It involves a relationship between you and a trained therapist or trained therapist who has a desire and willingness to help you accomplish your individual goals. Counseling involves sharing sensitive, personal, and private information that may at times be distressing. During the course of counseling, there may be periods of increased anxiety or confusion. The outcome of counseling is often positive. However, the level of satisfaction for any individual is not predictable. Your therapist is available to support you throughout the counseling process. Okay, confidentiality. All interactions with counseling services that I'm a part of, including scheduling of or attendance at appointments, content of your sessions, progress in counseling, and your records are confidential. No record of counseling is contained in any academic, educational, or job placement file. You may request in writing that the counseling staff release specific information about your counseling to persons you designate. So whoever you want to release this stuff to, you can do that. You can put it in writing, but if you want to release it to your mom, that's cool. Okay, now there are exceptions to confidentiality. The first one says the counseling staff works as a team. Your therapist may consult with other counseling staff to provide the best possible care. These consultations are for professional and training purposes. In other words, I may talk with someone else in my staff or another colleague of mine about a situation that I may be a little confused about or a little hesitant about, and they may have some experience dealing with this situation. I'll say, okay, well, this is what so-and-so, without giving your name and all of the information, enough for them to be able to make a decision about it, because maybe they had a client last year, or they have one right now that they're dealing with the same issue you may have, and they, you know, just another viewpoint of it will help me make my decision, because I don't want to rush into anything, and that mess you up and mess me up as well. Okay. The next thing, if there's any evidence of clear and imminent danger of harm to self and or others, a therapist is legally required to report this information to the authorities responsible for ensuring safety. In other words, if you're considering suicide, or you talking about going to kill your mom or your dad or your boyfriend or whoever, I have to take that seriously, even if you don't do it or not, because if you do, then I'm in trouble and that person's dead. Okay, so we don't want that. State law requires that staff of counseling services who learn of or strongly suspect physical or sexual abuse or neglect of any person under 18 years of age must report this information to County Child Protection Services. In other words, if there's any kind of child abuse, beating them up, sexually abusing them, verbally abusing them, or anything like that. And that also includes elder abuse as well, because a lot of people unfortunately take advantage of older people, because they really can't fend for themselves, or mentally they're maybe a little bit slower, so they try to run a game on them. If that happens, I have to report it to the authorities. The last one here, it says a court order issued by a judge may require the counseling services staff to release information contained in records and or require a therapist to testify in a court hearing. In other words, if there's a court proceeding going on and it has something to do with a case that I had in the past or am dealing with right now, and the judge says I have to, there are other things I can refuse to do that, depending on the situation. But generally speaking, if I'm subpoenaed to appear in court to do this, then I have to speak on it. And those are the limits or exceptions to confidentiality. Outside of these here, what we stay in here, stays here. Okay, so you don't have to worry about me putting it on YouTube or texting it to somebody or Snapchat or whatever that stuff is. Okay. Now it says you can refuse to sign the consent authorization. You're not required to sign this consent authorization form, and you may refuse to do so without affecting your right to any services you are receiving. Canceling this consent and authorization. You may withdraw your consent to participate in this interview at any time. If you feel uncomfortable about it, or you change your mind, or you come up to a situation that you really don't want to talk about, you don't have to do that. Okay, you say, you know what, I think we're just going to have to end this right here. If that's what you say, that's it. I can't force you to do anything. We appreciate prompt arrival for appointment. Please notify if you'll be late. 24-hour notice of cancellation allows us to use the time for other people. That's just a formality. There is no fee for this service. If you're referred to health, mental health, or substance abuse professionals, you are responsible for those charges. It says, I have read and discussed the above information with my therapist. I understand the risks and benefits of counseling, the nature and limits of confidentiality, and what is expected of me as a client of the counseling services. Do you understand? You sure?
Yep.
All right. So this is same thing. So we're not going to repeat that. This is where you sign, this is where I sign, and this is where we date it. Okay?
Let's see.
28th. Yes. It's Friday's the 30th. Thank you. Alrighty. And now that we've gotten that out of the way, because that's something that's important, informed consent, I would suggest, for whatever reason later on in the past, or in the future, I should say, if you decide to go to see some counseling from someone else, I would, if they don't offer it, I would ask for a consent form, just to cover your tracks and to make sure that there's a cover, so there won't be any kind of legal or other potential issues later on. Okay, because see, that's paperwork now. It's just like, okay, if somebody said I didn't do this, well, according to that piece of paper over there, you did.
Right.
Okay, that covers you and everybody else. Okay, back to a recap real quick of the last session. I think we were really kind of talking about your classes and trying to transfer in the fall to Florida State. I think your boyfriend is up there as well, and really trying to work and save up as much money as possible so you won't have to get any loans. Okay, so that's where we're going to start today's session. Tell me a little bit about how much have you been thinking about what we've been talking about lately, and I guess what I should say actually, has anything changed? And if it had, just tell me a little bit about what's going on since we talked last time.
Well, I think about it like almost daily because I really think about my future a lot. So I focus a lot on that, but nothing has really changed yet. I thought about seeing if I can just make some wiggle room to do what I need to do. I haven't figured out a solution yet.
Okay.
So as of now, my plans are still
The same? Okay.
still set.
All right. Well, I understand that. So you're saying that, I think what you're saying is that you're still trying to, still trying to figure out a way to come up with that money, and whatever you, I guess, can possibly do, legally speaking, to come up with the money so you won't have to, apply for loans and get loans to go to Florida State. I think that's admirable. Have you, first of all, how are you doing in class, since we're talking about school?
Well, they were going good,
Mm-hmm.
and then due to some other issues, everything just went left really quick. And being as though they were like 4 and 6 week classes, we come back from that. So I have to retake those classes again in the fall.
Right.
But my last class of the summer, which is the one I'm in now, had my first test today. So far, so good. Didn't do what I wanted to do, but I still did what I need to do.
Right.
So.
Okay, so you're still in the clear with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that sounds like it sounds to me like, in spite of the fact that things aren't working out quite exactly as you had hoped or planned they would, there's still, I guess, time or room to kind of keep pushing toward that goal. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
I have to get it all done this fall.
I understand. Well, I tell me a little bit about um, Plan B, if there is a Plan B.
I think Plan B, depending on how I'm feeling, interchanges with Plan A.
Okay.
Because, I said I wanted to, do the phlebotomy program in the fall and then get a job and then spring go ahead and move so I can have a stable job with steady hours for a
Right.
place for me and my boyfriend. But due to my spring issues earlier this year, it kind of pushed everything back. So now I'm left with like, okay, well, if I still do this, then that throws me off basically a whole school year. And if you're trying to measure your own time, that's not good. So sometimes I'm thinking I want to do it, and other times I'm thinking just after this, go ahead with the job you have now and stick it out. Kind of like stepping out there on faith a little bit. So.
Okay. Well, I myself can relate to that, especially as far as the timing and curveballs being thrown from time to time, because I think, as I stated, talked a little bit about before, myself personally, as far as school is concerned, I was already going to be late from the beginning because of that bad car accident. I already knew I was going to be late. Honestly, I wasn't even thinking about school at the time because of what happened. I was just, you're talking about, coma, I guess all that. I'm just more concerned about feeding myself, walking, simple stuff that people take for granted, going to the bathroom by yourself and all this kind of stuff. So I already knew I was going to be late. And then, I got another car accident and changed my major. So it just, sometimes it seemed like I was just like, well, goodness, what's going on? I can't win for losing. But as far as finishing, I never doubted I would finish. I just didn't know when.
Yeah.
But I thank God I had a lot of support. My parents, my brother, and my family, and as well as some friends who were going to school up there at the time. That I can, like I said, I can relate to, this turned into that or longer. So you're like, okay, what is we gonna do now? Anyway, do you tell me? I heard you mention your boyfriend again. Tell me a little bit about how he feels about it. What his whole little input into this is.
He's ready. He's actually we had talks about he had talks about me moving like earlier this year or after the spring semester, but me being the person that I am, I want to make sure that I'm stable enough to help you out and not just make you do everything on your own.
Right.
So, and that's where we butt heads a lot, because he's like, just come on, I got everything. I'm not going to let you take care of everything yourself.
Okay, so if I'm hearing things, it's like on one side, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're still wanting to go and he still wants you to come. However, you don't want to burden him, but he says don't worry about it. Where are you guys with that? Because it sounds a little like a little confrontation there.
I mean, it doesn't get that bad. He's just like, because he's very good with budgeting himself. So
Okay.
he's like, how well I am with money.
Okay.
So the worry you have, you shouldn't have it.
Right.
And I know that.
Uh-huh.
And I know I shouldn't have it, but I still do.
Right.
So
It sounds to me like you're still a lot of thought, concern for other people's, well-being and feelings, which is a good thing, which is a good virtue. And I say it sounds like you, because of that belief that you have, or that type of living, you still, as much as you want to be up there with him, you don't want to get up there and all of a sudden, we got this bill, we got that bill, we got that bill, I got that bill, and I'm either not working or I don't, I'm not contributing hardly anything, and then I see the stress on your face, even though you're not telling me, and then I'm just, sleeping up at night, worrying about, oh gosh, I'm stressing my boyfriend out, oh, by the way, I still got to go to class.
yeah.
Because class doesn't care what's going on outside of class, not really. Have you guys, tell me a little bit, if there is one, about some type of compromise maybe? Because I know there's had to be a compromise, obviously, with the timing, because of classes and grades and things like that, as well as the money. Has there been any type of conversation about a compromise maybe?
No, not really.
Okay.
Because it's like, yeah, he wants me to come, but he can't meet me. So,
Yeah.
so until I'm ready, because I'm the one that has to make the big move,
Yeah, that's correct.
then he basically just has to like wait on me.
Okay. Well, I just thought about something because I remember, obviously, you were talking about your parents. I didn't really hear anything about his parents per se. Tell me a little bit about what his parents have to say about all this, if anything.
I'm assuming they don't care. They look at him like, hey, you're grown, you're out there on your own, you're paying your own bills, so it's, whatever y'all want to do.
Okay. Have you ever talked to his parents before?
Not about like moving, but like a little conversation and stuff. Yeah, I've talked to them.
So you haven't talked to them about this situation here?
No.
Okay. All right. When speaking of parents, do you mind, I guess, giving me an update on what your parents are saying about the whole situation? Because I'm sure they have something to say.
Yeah, they probably would if I would talk to them about it.
Okay. So.
But my dad, him and my boyfriend, they have a great relationship. They're best buds. So I don't think he would have, too much to say as far as like who with, but dads and their little girls, especially me being the last one, so he probably have a lot to say about life and you got this and you got these bills and that bills and don't get sidetracked and remember that they're always going to solve. The basic moving out the house lecture, pretty much.
Yeah, and I don't have any sisters, but I could understand that. Have there been any things, because you're the youngest, have there been any conversations about, well, remember this is what we went through with your older sister or your older brother, all this other kind of stuff, and we don't want that to happen to you?
No, not really. As far as moving out the house, no, they haven't said that, but we really don't touch on that much.
Well, so, from what I'm hearing, they're kind of summarized up to this point really quick. The boyfriend's okay with it. His parents, I guess, are okay with it, even though you're really not sure. He's working, you know, he's got everything taken care of as far as finances are concerned, and his grades are still okay. His grades are still good, so he's covered. Okay, your parents, I guess, are kind of okay with it, kind of sorta. And your dad really likes your boyfriend, which is an advantage for you. At the same time, your classes didn't work out necessarily like you wanted this spring, even though you can, you know, can make that up. But that is a little delay, and you're still trying to make sure that you can add as much money to the pot as you can personally. That sound about right?
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
You got it.
Okay, so, what are your next steps? Because the fall will be here before you know it. And, you know, are you? Well, tell me about your. How? Tell me a little about your potential response to a delay of not being able to get up there in the fall and having to wait till next spring. Tell me a little bit about that, if you've even thought about it.
That, I'm gonna be honest with you, it brought me down a whole lot. And I got to the place after the spring semester and I was realizing, like, okay, I'm not gonna walk in May. Gonna have to come back, so you push back. So for about a good month and a half, 2 months maybe, I cried about it all the time. It was a very sensitive subject for me. But as it came time, you know, semester ending, I was like, you know what? It's okay. You know, it's still going to be the same year. So, cause I was really worried about wasting money on my tassel. So, still going to be 2017. Does not matter how long it takes, as long as you get it. And I had to realize with myself, you like, okay, hey, you need to slow down, okay? You were so focused on leaving here because you don't like being in the town that you're staying in, and you are trying to rush through so you can hurry up, and you just really need to take your time and focus. So that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, well I think that sounds like there's some, you know, progression maturity-wise and patience, because I know you said you were basically the last time you're impatient in yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, if I remember that correctly.
Very.
Okay, but I also think that it's that impatience, that energy is there, and I think that it sounds like you're trying to use that same energy and just, you know, instead of all at once, just a little at a time. Okay, get the same thing done. It just may not be exactly when I want it. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that you're coming to the conclusion that, you know, it just may be the best thing for me to slow it down a little bit. So I'll make sure that all my I's are dotted and all my T's are crossed. Not rush through it and then I have to go back and cross a bunch of T's, dot a bunch of I's because I was in such a hurry I forgot. Okay. Okay. Well, I think that sounds pretty good. Definitely, it sounds like I said, some progression from definitely our first interview, and even this one here. You're going from, you know, I got to get it done now. I want to go now, to, you know what, it's going to be okay. I'm still going to get there. I just may not get there exactly when I want it, but I'm still going to get there. And I'm going to use this extra time to make sure that everything is taken care of in class and out of class.
Right.
Okay. I think we'll end it here. What I want you to think about next time, more, I guess, a continued, you know, action plan, quote unquote, as far as what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, you know, as far as the money. And I hope I don't step on your toes. Honestly, let me ask you a question. Have you talked to anyone about Pell Grants?
I have, and I actually received one my first 2 semesters of college.
Okay.
But then which was last fall,
Mhm.
I kept waiting on, on my account for it to show up as a recovery.
Mhm.
It wasn't showing up, and time was drawing near for school to start, money to be due.
Yeah.
So I had to hurry up and talk to someone so that my classes won't get dropped and I have to re-enroll because I
Correct.
might not get the same classes.
Um,
And it turns out that I was not eligible because they said my dad made too much. And so,
been there, done that.
yeah, so,
Well, my next, I guess, consideration would be, as much as you don't want to, at least, if you for whatever reason decide to go the loan route, I would suggest at least finding out all the information about it, because even though you have to pay them back, that is one thing that will take care of those expenses. And then some. You take care of some other things, but I think we're gonna leave it here. We'll talk about that the next time.
all right.
Thank you very much,
Thank
man.
you for having me.
And I'm proud of you. Glad you got here.
Thank you.
Okay.